right. 5 seconds to go in the first half. Dante fires deep to the left. Moss caught it at the 11, but now he pitches it to Mo Williams. Touchdown!
Welcome back to another edition of the Climb in the Pocket podcast. We don't have the whole band here with us. You know, Jason's out in Vegas living it up, but I do still have my two other guys here with me, Miles Gorham and Yinka Allende. Miles, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good, man. Just tired. Can't wait for the weekend.
Good, man. That's awesome to hear. And Yinka, how's everything going?
Yeah, man. Everything's going good. One more day of work this week, and this weekend's gonna be good. It's my weekend off, so gonna be doing some relaxing.
That mean you about to go see Black Panther 3 times?
I was just about to ask him.
Probably 4, but I might actually end up seeing it this weekend with my bros. So we'll see.
Before we start anything, I have to say R.I.P. to Wesley Johnson's ankles. Please tell me y'all saw what James Harden did to him.
Oh, yeah, he's done playing basketball. There's no way you come back. You rip up whatever contract you have, and you stop playing basketball.
Like, you got to go fight him, right? Like,
have to.
Man, it was I actually watched it live last night, and I was laying in the bed when it happened, and I raised up and was just like, oh, my God. The stare down was so disrespectful, and then he made the 3 right after it, which made it way worse. It was so funny.
I don't know how you come back from that. Like, James Harden, it's so disrespectful.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're on the court or whatever, I mean, you see dudes do that all the time. Like, you play street ball or whatnot. But to see it in a live professional game, it's like Miles said, you got to go fight him.
Yeah, that was really bad. But moving on, Prince, question for the night. I know you got something. What you got for us?
Yeah, man. It is combine season. So I figured I'd incorporate my random question in. If you guys had to pick one combine event that you feel that you might shine in, what would be the thing that you feel would be shining? I was always kind of like, I was quicker than I was fast. So I think the 3-cone drill would probably be one of my areas that I'd probably do well in. Well, y'all.
Miles, what would you be the best in?
Well, I mean, you're a quarterback, so I feel like you can go any direction you want to go. I kind of agree with Prince. That's kind of my thing. My straight line speed wasn't, all that. It was, I was quicker. I'm quicker than fast, so I'd probably like the 3-cone or the 20-yard shuttle or something like that. Something along those lines. Something more you had to use a little more agility instead of straight line speed.
The real question is, though, Yinka, are you throwing at the combine or are you waiting till pro day?
Oh, I'm waiting till pro day. I can't be having these folks. I want to give them a surprise.
Yinka didn't even get an invite to throw to the lineman.
I turned it down, man. That's what ended up happening. So, not throwing at the combine. So,
yeah. So I think my best event probably would be, I'd say the shuttle. I'll be right there with y'all. And obviously none of those drills really matter to me, but the throwing portion, I would throw at the combine. I love a challenge. I'm a competitor.
But you're not running. You're not going to be trying out for receiver or what?
No, I mean, I'm good on that. But moving on, there was a very interesting day. The combine is filled with a lot of storylines. And the biggest question, obviously, or arguably entering the combine for the Vikings was their quarterback situation. We saw Rick Spielman talk yesterday. He basically said 1,000 words without saying anything. We all know that's Rick talk and exactly what he does. He just runs around in circles and he doesn't really give you any insight. He's the master at not showing his hand at all. But on the opposite end of that, we saw Mike Zimmer, who is completely different. In his press conferences, he had a lot of interesting things to say, and he really started it off with addressing the quarterback situation. We all know that's obviously the biggest topic entering the offseason. He was asked about Sam, Teddy, and Case, and just going back over each of the 3 of those guys just to sum up some of the things that he said. Starting off with Sam, he said He loves Sam. He thinks he's a great person, but he was out skiing in Jackson Hole last week. He says he's a tremendous athlete, but the biggest question surrounding Sam is if he can stay healthy, and he doesn't really know what exactly will happen with that situation. The next person he talked about was Teddy. Obviously, he said that he loves Teddy. He thinks he's a great competitor, has the heart of a lion and a champion, and he did everything that he possibly could to be ready last season, and Mike Zimmer felt that he was ready to go in games, but he just didn't get the ample opportunities to get him out there outside of the Cincinnati game. But he said if Teddy does come back, hopefully he's with him. But if not, then he'll give him a hug, and he hopes the best for him. Moving on to Case, the guy that did start for the Vikings last year and led them to the NFC Championship game before ultimately losing to the Eagles. Basically, what he said about Case is the biggest question about him is he doesn't know if the Case from the Los Angeles Rams will show up or if the guy that led the Vikings will show up last year. And that's just the biggest question surrounding Case Keenum. Obviously, no one asked him about Kirk Cousins because he can't comment on that situation. So I just want to get your guys' general thoughts. Starting off with you, Yinka, what did you take away from his discussion or his quotes about the quarterback situation?
Yeah, I think Zim, thankfully, kind of polar opposite of what you saw as far as Spielman. You got a little bit more than we got a lot, actually. I think Zim always is very kind of upfront, maybe almost to a fault. But as far as, three quarterbacks, obviously, I mean, I think it's kind of clear that maybe Sam Bradford is the outsider of the three quarterbacks going in. I think after seeing him this year, they just really kind of felt they can't trust him moving forward as, their quarterback starter of the future. I mean, if they were to bring him back, it would be more insurance, but I don't think that they're at the point where they can trust it. As far as Case, Zim, he's kind of been saying what he's always been saying about Case, as far as, he has that horseshoe, he has, the magic rabbit foot, whatever the case is, that he doesn't buy into Case being that guy of the future, in my opinion. I think that he thought more so that Case was bailed out more often than not, and that's kind of the mentality. And it's really, really hard going into, next season, and you really don't have that huge vote of confidence from your coach. As far as Teddy, we all know Teddy is Zim's son, but understandably, I think Zim, he's kind of being real with himself when he's like, he hasn't played football a lot in the last couple of years. As much as I wanted to get him out there, we just didn't quite do that. So it's hard for me to try to sell my son to the rest of the Vikings organization and say, hey, this is our guy. He hasn't played in a while, but I still believe in him. So it's there's just a lot as far as this quarterback conversation. I think Zim gave us a lot, but at the same time, I think he also left us with, if he has to choose a guy, who is he still going to pick? So, I mean, everything that he said, gold nuggets, but I think there's still 13 more days until free agency starts. So we'll probably find out a lot more so in the next couple of days and weeks.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said that because he was very complimentary of all three guys, but he repeatedly said that there's serious questions about each and every one of those guys. And obviously he didn't commit one way or the other to any of those three guys, but I thought he had some very interesting quotes in his discussions about all three of those quarterbacks. Miles, what did you take away from what Mike Zimmer said today at the Combine?
Yeah, I think one thing that's always refreshing with a guy like Mike Zimmer is, especially when the GM is Rick Spielman and he, like you said, he says a lot of nothing just because he's so good at, playing that game and making sure people don't really catch on to anything specific that he's really saying. Zim's the complete opposite. Zim's going to tell you straight up how he feels, what he thinks, and I love that because it's nice to be able to hear that side of a coach and kind of get that, it's not that normal coach speak that they say. So I love that from Zim. And so from what I took from it today was more of a kind of the stuff we already knew. He didn't really say anything new, anything that we didn't expect. He's they're like the fans. We know the coaches. They're unsure about Case in terms of his long-term, success. Is that gonna last? Was 2017 just a product of just the team, or maybe is it or is that case going to be moving forward? They don't really know. So that's kind of the internal question marks that they have in there, which is probably the biggest holdup in terms of what they would offer in a contract, because they don't know. So they know there's some range in there where they're probably gonna have to pay a little bit more than they'd probably even like to. So that's Case. We know Zim's never been fully committed to Case, but I think there's this idea that it doesn't mean that they won't still try to sign Case, which I think if that's the case and that's the situation, Zim will be on board. Zim will make that announcement like, he's behind Case 100%, like that would be his quarterback if that's the decision they decide to go. But he doesn't have to act like he's excited about him, because he doesn't know if that's the route they're going. So then there's Sam, who he went skiing and everything like that. So I don't really think that's a big deal. He's healthy. Like, it doesn't mean he shouldn't go do things like ski. So I don't really think that's a big deal for me. But the one word that, really stood out to me was his degenerative knee, which, we know his knee's been really major problems throughout his NFL career. So we know that, to me, kind of just says a lot, I think. And I think we already knew this, but I think it just says to me, kind of, Zim's basically saying, Sam's an option, but Sam's not the top few options. Sam would be the guy that we go to if we were desperate, we lose out on, he didn't mention anything about Cousins, but if we lose out on Cousins, if we lose out on Teddy, lose out on Case, Sam would potentially be that next man up after that. And then there's Teddy. We know Zim's relationship with Teddy. We know how much he loves him, and how much he looks at him, like more than just his quarterback. So I think there's definitely probably this internal struggle for him figuring out, his health, the contract. Is there an upgrade over Teddy? How's that knee going to hold up? Like, I think there's just this whole internal struggle for Zim, because I'm sure, that's who he wants. But I think he also understands that there's more to it than just wanting Teddy and all that. So I think everything he said, like I said before, we knew that's how he felt. I think he didn't really sway me to anything different than we already knew. So, but it was just nice to hear him kind of talk about each individual and, praise the things that they do well, but then not be afraid to come out and say some of the things that they struggled with. So, again, that's why I say I always appreciate with Zim.
Yeah, and it's good to actually hear someone actually be open about the situation, as opposed to Spielman, who's really not going to give you much insight. He's really going to regurgitate those quotes over and over and over that he does every single offseason. And, I mean, that's his duty, and that's just his style as the general manager. He doesn't want to show his hand and tip to others in the league exactly what he's going to do. We're going to go over 4 questions that Mike Zimmer addressed today in his press conference. That was the first one, the quarterback situation. The next one I thought was one of the more interesting questions of his entire segment, and I thought Zimmer might have showed his hand a little bit, which he does have the right to do. And he talked about building through the draft and how important that was, and wanted to keep his defense intact. What he said was, him and Rick Spielman sat down, and he said, we've won 40 games since I've been here, and that's because of the football team, not one particular person. But he said we played really good on defense for the most part, and that's been their identity. The Vikings defense only gave up around 12 points or 13 points a season ago, which made them one of the top defenses in the league. But he said it's important that we continue to put the pieces in place on defense to keep winning these games that we've done in the past. And how I took that was, with these guys coming up for monster extensions and Danielle Hunter, Eric Kendricks, Anthony Barr, Mike Zimmer wants to keep those guys in place, and he doesn't seem like he's willing to sacrifice that for paying a quarterback like the Vikings have been rumored to be, out there with Kirk Cousins, been flirting with Kirk Cousins, and Mike Zimmer just didn't seem like he was a big fan of that. Now, obviously, he didn't mention Kirk Cousins, but he seems like he wants to keep his defense intact, and he's big on building through the draft. What did you guys think of that quote? We'll start off with you, Miles.
Yeah, for me, I think it does say. I think we kind of knew that though. I think we knew that Zim never wants to take away his core players. He never wants to do anything to take away the players he's developed, the players he wants to bring back, and the ones that he's drafted. Like he doesn't want to do anything to kind of detriment that. Like especially his defense. We know that's his baby, um, and he knows the market that's out there for quarterback. He knows the new contracts that have been happening with guys like Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Stafford, Derek Carr. He sees those numbers, and I think he worries because I'm sure all the conversations they've had internally about the potential numbers that would stack up to get a guy like Kirk Cousins or wherever Case Keenum's numbers might land. Is with those numbers, what does that take away from any of the players that we have currently that need to be re-upped? And if it does, I don't think Zim. I think that's where Zim's like, well, hold up. I don't want to lose the guys that we currently have. Is there another way we can get around this? And I also think so I think he's on that train where he doesn't want to do that, but he also understands how important the quarterback position is, and I think he knows and understands that they're going to have to pony up a little bit to kind of solve this, quote unquote solution this offseason. So however they decide that, I think he understands that, but he also doesn't want to completely break the bank to do it, to lose, because he doesn't want to lose his core players, some of his young core players. And then like another side I took too, and I don't know if this is really Zim's strategy or not. It could have been more of a PR move. Rick kind of put him up to, but it could be more of one of those like coach speak where he says this stuff to kind of like basically tell someone like a Kirk Cousins, hey, if you really want to come here, you're going to do it on terms that we're comfortable doing, not just, jacking that price up. And I think it's more of like if you really do want to be a part of a winning culture and a winning team, you're going to do what you need to do to allow us to keep the core players we have and still pay you enough, but it might not be that Derek Carr, Matthew Stafford, Jimmy Garoppolo type money. It might be a little less than that. So I think there could be a whole bunch of different things going on there, but that's just me. You never know with Zim. He's a pretty straight shooter, so maybe he wasn't doing anything like that at all. So just trying to look at it at both sides.
Yeah, and I think that's a very interesting point. And maybe Zimmer was using it as a leverage ploy to Kirk Cousins and saying, like, look, we want you, but we have our set price. And we've seen Rick Spielman do that in the past. Kelechi Assembly was a prime example of that. It was widely reported that the Vikings were in that race, but Rick always has a set price range that he doesn't extend beyond. Will they do that with Kirk Cousins? Nobody knows, but we all know Rick is very disciplined as far as managing the cap. Rob Brzezinski does a hell of a job with that. And we know he has that set price and that set price range exactly that he doesn't go farther than. And maybe you're right. Maybe this was a leverage ploy by Mike Zimmer and saying a message to Kirk Cousins that we want you, but we have our set price range as well. But Yinka.
Well, no, and hold on, Rogue, and it might not have been just Kirk Cousins. It could have been a guy like Case Keenum too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, Case, like if you do want to be a part of this and come back, it might be at a lower number than you even want it to be. So I don't know. You never know.
Yeah, and I mean it's smokescreen season, and teams play games, and they have different leverage ploys that they like to utilize. But Yinka, what'd you take away from Mike Zimmer's building through the draft quotes?
Well, I think it's important. Luke Inman, he actually put out something that was quite interesting. It looked at, Rick Spielman over the last 10 years, the guys that he's drafted in the first round. You have guys like Chad Greenway, Adrian Peterson, Ponder, Percy Harvin, Xavier Rose, et cetera, et cetera. And, and I kind of looked at, okay, well, everyone expects first round picks to be, kind of to be hits, because obviously it's the one that you're investing the highest and up. And based on that, I've, out of the 13 first round picks we've had over the last 10-ish years, we've hit, out of 13, we've missed on probably 5, maybe 6 of them. So, I mean, we do have a fairly high rate. So when you look at building through the draft, you have to assume that you're going to miss on picks. You're going to miss on high picks. You're going to miss on, obviously, you're going to, as you go down, you miss even more so. But with that said, it's the reason why Zim over the last 4 years you've probably seen him like, hey, we've probably been hitting on some, not just our first round picks, but some of the other picks that I think I could maybe potentially supplement. Or I finally got the guys that I want, so I don't want to have to go back and necessarily look to quote unquote replace a guy that's maybe not even in his prime just yet, like a Daniil Hunter or Eric Hendricks or something, and try to go find another guy to fit into the scheme, and then he has to learn the scheme, and then he has to kind of internalize it and play within it. So to that sense, I think that's where Zim's coming from. He's like, because when he got here in 2014, he basically had one draft, could get rid of half the roster that he kind of didn't want. 2015 came back and filled the rest of the half with more of the guys that he wanted. And, by the 2015, you obviously saw us make that playoff run. So I think Zim does understand that it is important to have a quarterback in place, which is why you've heard his comments about never, when Teddy got hurt, hoping he never had to deal with another quarterback. But I think he does understand that, like, yeah, this game, as important as the quarterback position is in all of sports, I mean, there's still 21 other guys that he has to coach and make sure that they all are playing cohesively. So I think it's not just from a money standpoint, but I think it's also from just his coaching philosophy, where it's like, I can't spend all my time wondering, if this guy is going to make or break this season, right? Because he could be playing at a very, very high level, and then you could get Blair Walshed. So I think he just understands that he's not going to put all his eggs into just the quarterback basket, which is kind of like the desperation the league is going to. Just find a quarterback and you'll be fine, which in some instances that does work. But I think Zim wants to kind of adopt that other philosophy. It's like, I want to get 21 other players that are really, really good, and I want to be able to keep them together as long as I can.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly how they address this entire quarterback situation. Nobody really knows, and there's a lot of mixed reviews and reports out there. Seems like there's a different report every single day, whether it's interest in Teddy Bridgewater or Case Keenum or Sam Bradford or even Kirk Cousins. So no one really knows exactly how this thing will turn out, except for the people that are inside Winter Park. And I'm interested to see the exact strategy that they use here in about 13 days once free agency opens. But moving on to the next question, Mike Zimmer talked about Dalvin Cook. We all know he's a very it's a star-driven league in the NFL, and Dalvin Cook seemed to be that extending player, and that's still in the second round that Viking fans were hoping that he would be when they heard his name called on draft day. He obviously went down with the ACL injury against the Lions, but this was the first time we heard Zimmer talk openly about Dalvin Cook. He said he's an unbelievable player. He's a great player. Dalvin will probably get a majority of the carries next season, but we have to be mindful that it is a 16-game season. Now, that was a little bit different than what Rick Spielman said yesterday when talking about Latavius Murray. Everyone knows that his contract is up in the air right now. The Vikings haven't exercised his option. So they seemed like they weren't on the same page with that exact idea of what's going on in the backfield. I'm sure they discussed this plenty of times, and everyone knows that Dalvin Cook is the lead back. But maybe they showed their hand in saying that they're going to bring Latavius Murray back. Everyone knows that his contract number is really high. He's scheduled to make around $5.2 million next year, which currently would make him the fifth highest paid running back. We don't know whether his contract is going to be restructured or if they're going to outright exercise his option and give him his entire salary. So, Yinka, just starting off with you, running back extraordinaire. Of course, we have to start this question off with you. What was your overall ideas, or what did you take away from his quotes about Dalvin Cook and Latavius Murray?
I think we know that Dalvin Cook is a very special player, and it's difficult because a guy like Dalvin Cook, he's such a weapon. Where you saw last season, obviously Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen were the huge weapons, and then really after them, there was this void of like, who is that third guy who's going to constantly step up to maybe alleviate some of the pressure off these two performing at such a high level. And I think that Zim is kind of maybe speaking to like, hey, I get another weapon back. I get a guy who is not only a threat to the run, but also a threat in the passing game as well too. And that he's obviously improved in his pass blocking. So I think it'll be tough for Dalvin to, especially coming off that injury, to maintain playing 70% of the snaps. But I can understand where Zim is coming from. He's such a special talent that you want to just get him the ball however you can. But with a guy like Latavius Murray, who, I think as the season rolled on, we saw the strengths and weaknesses. Strengths of being very good in the short yardage, goal line situations. Really in the open field, not the greatest. He really just took whatever the offensive line gave him. Then there's a guy like Jerick McKinnon, who is that kind of guy who was really able to create something out of nothing. I'm more so on the line where I'd be okay with taking some of that Latavius Murray money and either cutting him or restructuring and giving that to Jerick McKinnon to keep him around, because I do think that with the three of them, you would probably have a really good running back committee going on. So we'll see what happens, but I am not necessarily against Dalvin Cook taking a lion's share, but I'm also I'm hesitant to have him do that coming off an injury, where I would much prefer maybe working in a draft pick or bringing back Jerick, or if Tavis is going to do it, giving him a little bit more.
Yeah, and I'm completely with you on that. Miles, what was your takeaway from the Dalvin Cook and Latavius Murray comments from Mike Zimmer?
Yeah, I think the Dalvin Cook stuff all makes sense. I think they'll take it easy on him during the offseason and everything like that, training camp, just to kind of in a similar way they did this last offseason. They but obviously they'll ramp things up the healthier he is. I do think he was a little more coy about Latavius Murray's role than I thought he would be, just because, unless I miss some stuff, but I thought it was more about the Dalvin Cook show, and then I thought he was pretty coy about how DeFilippo would use a guy like Latavius Murray. I thought he was pretty coy about it. So I think there could still be up in the air about what they're going to do with him. They could be working out the restructure deal, as we speak. Who knows? I'm sure that's a topic of conversation this week, obviously, because they have until up till March 16th, and this is the big week to kind of hash out some of those details. So I do expect Murray back. I kind of want Murray back, and I know there's a lot of, and I'm not saying I want him back at his current price. I would prefer it to be at a reduced rate, but I think whatever happens, I think he'll be back. I think he enjoyed his time here. I think he's used to being in a running back by committee. He knew what he was kind of getting himself into when he came here. I don't think he expected us not to draft a running back. So I think there's that comfort level there. And I think the idea of, not having to force feed Dalvin Cook, all game long and having someone like Latavius Murray who, can come in and be capable. I like that. I'm good with that. And then obviously, going out and grab another running back would be my ideal situation. But I'm all for letting Dalvin Cook be the guy. He's the best, one of the better offensive players we have. He can run, he can catch. So like Yinka said, he's getting better at pass blocking. So if you want to make him be that guy, I'm all for it. But I just caution that they be a little bit more careful about it, just because of it's a long season. You want to make sure he gets through it. So don't force feed him too much, which I think a guy like John DeFilippo will. I think he'll be a little bit more creative about it with a guy like Dalvin Cook than the way Zim might even be talking about it. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. As long as they bring Murray back at a reduced price, I'm fine with it. And we all seen that John DeFilippo has been adamant about a 3 running back rotation, because it just keeps all of those guys fresh. And what he mean by that was he doesn't want to give a guy a lion's share of the carries. He kind of wants to mix it up in between all 3 of them and make sure that they're maximizing their role. We saw that in Philadelphia with LeGarrette Blount, Jay Ajayi, and Corey Clement throughout their season and in the Super Bowl as well. So he's really excited about Dalvin Cook, but he understands that he wants to keep him fresh as well. Moving on, talking some receivers. I know Miles is excited about this. I think this is the quote that caught a lot of fans.
I'm not excited about this. Don't get it twisted. I'm not excited about to talk about this.
This really caught fans by surprise, and that's about Laquon Treadwell. So the question that was asked was, what does he have to do to make the jump in year 3? Mike Zimmer just said, I think the big thing with him, he was talking about Laquon, is he needs to get out of his own way. He's a guy that works really hard, but probably doesn't do things the right way all the time. He just needs to get out of his own way and let things play out. Or he added this in at the end, a change of scenery. I think that's what really took a lot of people by shock. Him openly saying that if he doesn't do things the right way or get out of his own way, that he needs a change of scenery, or maybe that just needs to be the alternate route that the team takes if, the light bulb just doesn't turn on in his head. So, Miles, I got to get your thoughts on this first. What did you take away from the Treadwell comments from Mike Zimmer?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it. And we talk about how unfiltered and Zim's not afraid to speak his mind. So I'm glad he said it, because I'm glad it's not. I don't think, depending on what the Vikings decide to do with Treadwell, whether they try to trade him or not. Like, if they don't trade him, obviously I don't think he's just going to get outright cut, just because there's still too many guarantees left on his rookie contract going into his 3rd season. Like he also said, they're going to continue to give him opportunities, so I don't think they want to see him fail. I think the biggest thing I took away from it is it just sounds like we heard it during his rookie year and after Treadwell's rookie year, that he's pushing himself too much. He's doing too much of the workouts and trying to what he thinks is making himself better. Like Zim made the note, during he's doing running stadium steps on a in between it during 2 days and stuff like that. Like JR, you and I both know during that time, in training camp, that's the last thing I want to do is be running on my downtime. Like, that's terrible for your legs. It's terrible for your body, because that's the time for you need to rest. And I think if he's continuing not to listen to and heed their warnings of how to approach, the season itself, it's not working for them. It's not going to work for them. It's not going to work for him. It's not making him better. I think they're trying to do everything they can to help make him better. But if he's not going to listen and take their advice, I think that's just another one of those things that shows immaturity for a guy like Treadwell. And I think, that would definitely piss off a guy like Zimmer, because, he doesn't want his players not listening to him. So that's kind of how I took part of that. Then the other part of it, I took, that some of that, change of scenery. It definitely wouldn't surprise me if they were looking to shop a guy like Treadwell, just for the fact that, you do have Diggs and you have Thielen. And to be honest, I don't know what the plan with Wright is too, or what their decision is, because he's due I think a little bit over $4 million this season too. So I'm not fully sure what their plan is at wide receiver. So they could be looking to overhaul those, the receivers behind Diggs and Thielen. So I think there could be an opportunity there for them to kind of move him and kind of bring in a free agent and draft somebody else, in the middle rounds, because there's quite a bit of depth to do that. The talent in the draft class, I think you could bring in a guy to be a wide receiver 4, and that could help and contribute right away with how deep it is. So like I've always said, I think Treadwell has talent. I think if the right opportunity was there, I wasn't there. I'm not behind the scenes like Zimmer is, but when he says, he got all the opportunities in the world, he could be more referring to practice. He could be referring to, meetings, all that type of stuff, and not just, him getting open during games and not getting thrown to. I think there could be more to it than that. But I think at the end of the day, I think Treadwell has talent. He's still super young. I think he could go somewhere and be something. I think it's harder for him to do it here just because of the guys we do have in offense and the pecking order we have and the kind of offense they want to run out. He might not fit that exactly. So we'll see. I'm open to whatever they want to do with him, to be honest, at this point, but I'd like to see him succeed, and I would love it to be here.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I want to see him succeed too, but it just seems like he hasn't figured out how to be a pro yet, which was really weird to me. And we all know he's praised for his incredible work ethic, but he just makes some bad decisions from what the coaching staff says, running the stadium steps in the middle of 2-a-days and OTAs. It's just not smart decisions that he's making. He's just pushing his body to the limit too much and too often. He needs to rest his body, and we all know he's an extremely hard worker. Everybody says that, but he just seems like, as I alluded to earlier, that he's still learning how to be a pro. So, Ginka, what was your comments, and what's your thoughts on the whole Laquon Treadwell situation?
Yeah, I don't have much to say. I mean, it's hard because I was a Laquon Treadwell guy. He was my one in that draft. He was my number one wide receiver, admittedly. So I mean, it's hard because it's more looking like he's going to be a miss than anything. I do think he still does have talent. The issue is like I just don't think that talent might be in Minnesota with being that top guy, which is like you draft a guy that high, you kind of hope that he can at least push to be in that number one spot, but he really hasn't done that. And it's like you guys said, like running stairs during 2-a-days, maybe just overworking his body a little bit more, maybe not heeding to that coaching. We had that issue with Cordero Patterson. So ultimately speaking, maybe it is just a change of scenery that he needs. Maybe he needs to go to a place where he can really be that guy. I think JR, you said time and time again, Treadwell has been everywhere he's gone to. He has really been that guy. And in the pros, you see guys like Diggs and Thielen thriving, and it's hard to be the third guy on that depth chart, fourth guy on that depth chart. So I don't know, maybe he just needs to go to a place where he can gain that confidence back, or a place that really can just unlock, his talents, his abilities. But I think it's pretty telling if a coach ever says, change the scenery. I don't think a coach ever says that unless they have already had internal talks about moving him or trading him or cutting him, whatever the case is. So if Treadwell wasn't on notice before, I think he is definitely on notice now, and even the fan base as well too. But I mean, it doesn't have to be a terrible thing. Yeah, it's a miss first round pick, but at the same time, we're coming into this draft where we have a lot of complementary type pieces as far as the wide receiver position. So you can replace a Laquon Treadwell with finding some more production, some more value.
Well, and to touch on that, Yinka, sorry to interrupt a little bit.
No, go ahead.
Like you talk about, like I think what earlier in Rick Spielman's tenure as GM, he would be a little less reluctant to move on from higher round picks and draft picks in general, because he didn't want those guys to, he didn't want to like for it to be considered like a loss. So I think his willingness to kind of move on when he knows he needs to from guys that we've seen over the past few seasons with guys like Cordell Patterson, Christian Ponder, Matt Khalil. I mean, I know Matt Khalil was offered to come back, but kind of those guys that they're like, well, maybe, but we kind of don't think you're living up to what we expected to, so we're going to move on. So I think that willingness to do that is a big thing and important, because if they really do believe that Treadwell is not really destined for the long term here, don't be afraid to move on from him now, because if you get an offer that's decent, like, why not?
Yeah, and to that point, Miles, I think part of the reason why, I know we talk a lot about obviously Bill Belichick, but I think that organization is just so much different, because of Belichick and Brady and stuff. But I think most teams, the way that they are, they struggle to move on from these high round picks because honestly, like, not that you shouldn't, but at the same time, it's like they invest a lot of time and resources into making sure they're picking the right guy, and it's like, how long do we wait for him to for it to click? Because for some guys it takes 3, 4, 5 years. Some guys it's the first year that they come into the league, and we've definitely have been spoiled as far as wide receivers. We've definitely been spoiled by the Odell Beckhams, the Julio Jones, the guys who Antonio Browns, the guys who could just come into the league and they just are just monsters. But some other wide receivers has taken a little bit longer. So I think that continuing conversation is, when is the right time to move on from a player that you've invested so much into? And for Rick, it was like a personal thing. It was a failure to himself, but I think he's starting to understand that, like, if I miss on this pick, I need to make sure these next 3 picks, I don't miss on. I nail the second round. I nail the third round. I get some value in the 4th round. Maybe I find a diamond in the rough in the 6th and 7th round.
And the idea that you are going to miss on picks, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it should be you have to be okay. Like I said, I just read off like our past 10 years, and we didn't hit on all of them. I mean, we had guys who were in this organization and retired, and then we had guys who, Percy Harvin, who was great when he was here, but it was clear we kind of needed to move on from him. Cordero Patterson was another instance. So I think it's a very good thing that Rick. It feels like Rick is getting to the point where he can just like, I missed out on the first round pick. It does suck, but I'm going to move on. Because you don't want to have to feel like you want to do that, but at the same time, it's like this team is still going to have to keep getting better and better, and you're going to have to find. It just means that you'll have to be better in certain parts of the draft, even if you do miss on a higher pick. So, I think it's a non-ideal situation, but it's something that the Vikings can continue to grow from.
Yeah, and I've always said that the ascension of Adam Thielen really messed up the development of Laquon Treadwell because we were never able to see just how good he really could be because Adam Thielen always blocked his development because Adam Thielen, I mean, he's just an incredible story, and he just got better and better each and every year. And that really happened the same year that Treadwell was drafted, and it really blocked his development. So we're cheering for Laquon. We hope he does figure it out. And, I mean, if it doesn't happen, Mike Zimmer has already reiterated that he's going to probably have a change of scenery, and that just may be what's best for both parties at this point. But moving on to the big event of the weekend starting today, the NFL Combine, the on-the-field portion or testing actually starts today with the offensive linemen and running backs. I know Prince is excited about that. On Saturday, we have the quarterbacks, receivers, and tight ends. Then on Sunday, we have the defensive linemen and linebackers, and then they'll finish up on Mondays with the defensive backs for the on-the-field portion. So, I got to ask you guys, who are some prospects you're looking forward to seeing? And I'll start with you, Miles.
You know me, like we always talk about, I'm a big wide receiver guy, so I'm excited to see a guy like Deontay Burnett. He's one of my favorite mid-round slot receivers. I think he's the kind of guy. He's super young, like Juju Smith-Schuster was last year. He's still 20 years old. I think he will be come draft day too. I like him. I'm hoping he tests pretty well because I think he could be a really good find in the late 3rd to 4th round range. And one of my other draft crushes is Deshaun Hamilton, a wide receiver out of Penn State. I'm really excited to see him because I think he's going to test pretty well in the agility portion. But if he can get his 40 time in the mid 4.5s, I think it's going to help him a lot because on tape he looks like he could be a high 4.5 guy. So if he can kind of get in that mid to low 4.5s, I think that really help him a lot. And then lastly, my cornerback one, I think he's the best corner in the draft. Mike Hughes from Central Florida. I think that guy's is gonna test extremely well this week. I think he's going to blow it out of the water. I think he's gonna run the mid 4.3s. I think he's gonna explosion. He's everything you look for in a corner, in my opinion. So I'm really excited to see him on the on-field drills and in the testing.
And moving on, Prince, outside of Saquon Barkley, which we all know you're excited to see, who's some guys you're looking forward to watch?
Dallas Goedert, tight end. I've very much been looking forward to see how he does as far as the drills and whatnot. Guy that you've put me on, and I've been in love with his tape. Georgia guy, Isaiah Wynn. I want to see how he performs. Just kind of look at his footwork, see what he does. Some of the individual drills that are there. Another guy. I hate naming all the running backs, but I do want to see how Darius Geis does. I just want to see. I just want to see. I love watching the running backs just operate and stuff. But yeah, I might actually tune in a little bit more as far as the wide receivers, because like I kind of mentioned before, I do think that the Vikings need to, maybe really strongly consider maybe double dipping as far as this wide receiver class, because you have enough complementary players that could really step in day one and contribute. So yeah, I actually am going to be paying attention to wide receivers, tight ends, obviously running backs, and I can't miss my my dude Lamar Jackson. So I'll be tuning into a lot of different guys.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. Lamar Jackson was definitely a guy that I'll be keying in on. There really hasn't been any reports as far as whether he's throwing yet or not, but since he hasn't declined or came out and said that he's not throwing yet, I'm anticipating him throwing. So I'm really interested in seeing that. Y'all know my guy, Jair Alexander. I'm interested to see exactly what his medicals say and how he does and exactly how fast he will run. And my last guy, I've been pumping him out a bit, Lorenzo Carter, outside linebacker from Georgia. I think he's going to absolutely destroy the combine, and I think he's a guy that's really going to boost his stock coming out of Indy. So moving on, I need one bold prediction from the combine for you guys, and I'll just go ahead and kick it off. My bold prediction was that Cortland Sutton, who is a receiver from SMU, I don't think he's going to break a 4.640. I think he's going to run higher than that, meaning that he's not going to run very fast. And I think he's going to be taken out of the first round discussion. And I know that's a very bold prediction, and his draft stock is really dependent on how fast he runs at the combine. I don't think he's very straight line fast. And I was really hoping that he performed or actually participated down at the Senior Bowl. So my bold prediction is that Cortland Sutton won't run faster than a 4.640. Miles, what's your bold prediction for a prospect at the combine?
Ooh. That's a good one. Ooh, man, you're killing me. I think we might see. We'll see at least two players crack below a 4.340. Still hitting the 4.2s.
I like it.
I don't know how bold that is, but
I know a lead candidate right now, obviously, is Dante Jackson,
Yep.
the LSU corner, and another one I think is a sleeper is Naheem Hines, the running back from NC State. He's a guy I think that could break 4.2.
Watch they run 4.4 and it won't even matter.
Right. Prince, we all know your bold prediction that Saquon Barkley is going to run a 4.1.
No. Actually, it's a guy that I did mention that I do think Miles mentioned that he thinks there's going to be a guy that will break under 4.3. I think not Saquon Barkley, but Lamar Jackson. I think he's definitely going to run a 4.3. I think he could potentially push definitely that low or very, very high 4.2. He could run a 4.29. So that's my bold prediction. I think he's going to definitely break a 4.3, but he should be one of the guys to watch to potentially break into that 4.2 range.
And we definitely will be keeping tabs on these bold predictions and tallying who was right. And, we'll tally up everything on the next episode of the pod. Quick rapid fire. We got to do the this or that segment. So, baked potato or mashed potatoes? Yinka, starting with you.
I'm a mashed potato kind of guy, man. Mashed potatoes and gravy. Maybe put some sausages on top of it, but love me some mashed potatoes.
Wait, what?
Miles doesn't seem too happy or agree about that.
I said the sausages on top. That just threw me. I get.
You've never had you cut up little sausages up and you put them inside the gravy and then you sprinkle it over the top of the mashed potatoes?
Mm-mm.
Oh man, it's crazy.
Miles must be a baked potato guy.
He clearly is.
I'm not even judging you for the. No, I am a baked potato guy over mashed potatoes, but I don't mind mashed potatoes. I used to I don't like. It's a texture thing. I think. It makes me feel like it's baby food sometimes. So I don't know. It throws me sometimes, but I like the taste. It tastes good. I like you put a lot of butter and garlic in it. It's really great. obviously you put gravy on top of it. But I'll go baked potato.
I'm a mashed potato guy. Y'all know
Yeah,
exactly.
man.
Y'all know exactly what I'm about to say. Man, these mashed potatoes.
Oh, man.
Hooked me like that was. It's a $17 side now.
It is.
But
It's
it's the
$17.
best $17 you ever spend in your life.
Yeah,
That
some
is
cheese, some cheese,
man.
little. Oh my goodness,
Bacon bits. Man, it was
bacon bits.
amazing.
Woo. About to
It
be
was
having some of that next week, actually.
I
So.
wouldn't know.
You should know, Miles.
You gotta go to Manny's, Miles.
I wish.
Man, you could go. They're
You could
mashed.
go.
If you ever go, make sure you get the mashed potatoes.
I will.
I don't know how the Vikings ever lose a free agent after eating that mayonnaise. Seriously.
Because they ordered a baked potato instead of mashed potatoes.
And probably.
And the steaks are delicious too. They just they just melt as soon as the knife or fork or knife touches it. So it's amazing.
It's really good. Any upcoming projects for you, Yinka?
Not upcoming. A couple days ago, I released a conspiracy theory kind of article. I just basically said that I still think that the Vikings are in the smoke screen portion of the before free agency starts. So I just kind of worked through what I think about everything as far as Kirk Cousins rumors and everything with Teddy Bridgewater and Case Keenum and Sam Bradford. So yeah, feel free to go take a look out. Feel free to call me crazy because I am. But yeah, I enjoyed writing it.
Miles, you got anything upcoming?
Yeah, I'm just still working on draft guys and off-season stuff. So I'll have some. I'll plan on releasing my top 10 positions list rankings at the end, like probably right around early April, end of March.
We'll definitely be looking forward to that. I was going to release my top 50 prospects today. I'll probably end up doing it, but I'm not sure yet. So be on the lookout for that. It might be on climbingthepocket.com. It might not be. My top 50 pre-combine draft prospects. But that's a wrap. Climbing the Pocket, episode 70. Hopefully Jason's having fun in Vegas. Hopefully he comes back to us eventually in one piece.
He ain't coming back.
Hopefully he's having fun out there. We wish him well. Jason, if you're listening, shout out to you. Don't enjoy Vegas too much. Come back in one piece. But that's it. Climbing the Pocket, episode 70. We're out. Thank y'all for listening as always.